scientific and technological progress and our future. When one speaks about the future, two different opinions are generally expressed. Optimism of those who have confidence in technology and science and who foresee a better life in the future. Pessimism of those who instead foresee the destruction of humanity. Technological progress is a fundamental element of our society. Technology and science have made man's life extremely comfortable. In fact, automobiles, televisions, radios, electrical household appliances, etc., are the result of inventions in the technological and scientific field. On the other hand, one must note that air and water pollution derive from all those industrial processes necessary to produce man's comforts in large quantities. Is it already possible to foresee what will happen in the future? Technology and science have discovered atomic energy. Most persons associate this enormous source of energy to bombs, wars, and destruction. Few are the persons who realize the importance that this source of energy has in our contemporary and future society. Therefore, the danger is not the atomic or nuclear energy itself, but the way in which man could use it. Those who have a pessimistic view of the future cannot be condemned. The destructive force of the atomic energy has already been experimented in the last World War, and thousands of persons have lost their lives. In the last 30 years, the atomic bomb has been improved, and today its destructive power constitutes a menace to the entire humanity. We live, though, in an epoch in which our society could no longer exist without energy resources. Petroleum, our traditional source of energy, is running out. Atomic energy can substitute it and should exclusively be used for common utility purposes. Some decades ago, man had a lot of confidence in technology. But the atomic bomb, the ecological situation, the exhaustion of natural resources, overpopulation have proved man's incapacity to program a better future. However, the fact that many persons are starting to examine these problems demonstrates that man is trying to correct his errors. Let us hope that in future technology and science will be used for the benefit of humanity.
Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States of America. It is an important government center. No industries exist in Washington. Most of the population is employed by the government in its military, administrative, and political departments. The principal attractions in this city are monuments and museums. Other of its aspects are of secondary interest. The famous Washington Monument is the most interesting one. Memorials of various American historical figures can be found in this monument. A nocturnal visit is suggested to observe its statues brilliantly illuminated. Washington's climate is similar to Milan's. The most important museum is the Smithsonian. It contains collections concerning science and technology, natural history, Oriental art, modern and classical art. These collections are educational and interesting. The American president resides in Washington. He lives in the White House. Occasionally, curious visitors are permitted to observe the interior of the president's residence. It is in proximity to the Washington Monument. The United States Senate is situated in Washington. The Senate offices are enormous. A visit to the Senate is interesting when it is possible to watch political debates and parliamentary procedures. The Senate is a democratic institution. The Supreme Court is also situated in Washington. It represents the supreme judicial authority. Transportation systems in this city are efficient. In fact, a modern metropolitan transit system and a continuous bus service exist. The federal government in this city coordinates the national, state government, and international relations. In the United States, the President, Senators, and Representatives are all elected by the people. There are numerous parks in Washington. In these parks, festivals, concerts, and various sporting activities are frequently organized. Baseball, one of these sporting activities, is to Americans practically a religion. It is a famous and exciting sport. There are numerous restaurants in Washington where it is possible to obtain excellent typical American, Italian, Chinese, French, and German food. A variety of informal clubs and piano bars exist. The majority of them are in a particular zone. The population benefits from numerous cinemas, in addition to bars and theatres. Washington is a cultural centre.
Observatories. An astronomic observatory is an edifice equipped to study celestial bodies. Here, astronomers study solar, planetary and stellar phenomena. Observatories are frequently situated in remote places, distant from cities, possibly on isolated mountains. The illumination, pollution and frequency of radio transmissions in cities partially absorb and disperse light from stars, impeding accurate observation. Man has always studied space. In fact, when the telescope did not exist, Egyptians observed the celestial spheres and recorded the regular movement of planets and stars. The Mayan civilization in Yucatan, Mexico, constructed special observation towers. Their astronomical records were very sophisticated and advanced. They observed and recorded various solar, lunar and terrestrial phenomena. In 1575, the Danish astronomer Tycho Brahe founded the first important observatory. Brahe's very accurate observations provided Kepler, a German astronomer, essential data for his orbital theories. In modern observatories, there is usually a domed top. This dome is constructed to revolve with the telescope within it. Special separate structures protect electronic equipment and recording instruments. A section of the observatory is occupied by physics, photographic and optical laboratories. Photography is very important for astronomic investigation. As already said, observatories must be situated in remote areas, even because urban illumination and pollution disturb photographs that require long exposure periods. In fact, various modern observatories have been constructed on mountains where the air is transparent and tranquil. Astronomers' activities are primarily effectuated during nocturnal hours. Photographic exposures frequently take hours, and therefore the dome must revolve simultaneously with the celestial object in question. In other words, astronomical telescopes must compensate the rotation of the Earth in order to follow the apparent motion of celestial objects. Electronic instruments automatically calculate the movement of these celestial bodies with respect to the Earth and, therefore, determine the rotation velocity of the dome. Thus, photographs as well as particular studies may be effectuated. The most recent type of observatory is the radio astronomy one. Radio astronomy studies the energy emitted by celestial bodies at radio frequencies. In these observatories, telescopes are substituted by powerful radars. Studies of high-frequency radiation have created interesting theories concerning the composition and creation of the universe. Einstein's theories of relativity have been partially verified using radio telescopes to investigate the nature of curved space.
Theatre. Theatrical performance is probably the most ancient form of public representation. In ancient populations, such as, for example, the Greek and the Roman ones, theatrical activities had reached very refined levels. Theatrical companies were already composed of actors, musicians, and choral groups. Theatrical performances represent the most complete cultural form of expression. Today, theatrical performance is frequently considered a type of representation that not everyone can understand. Once, all those complicated operations necessary to construct a scenery did not exist, and therefore the representation occurred in a more spontaneous way. A grassy, circular space constituted the stage, and the mask, for some time, represented the only instrument. Precise rules very soon established the area of theatres. The grassy space was substituted by suitable edifices for representations. Roman and Greek theatre ruins demonstrate how important and famous theatrical performances were to these populations. The best example of a Roman ancient theatre is that at Pompeii. Today, theatres have a more defined structure, which generally consists of a covered edifice whose fundamental parts are the stage and the stall. Concerning the representation itself, the theatrical performance has absorbed various arts: dance, music, miming, literature, architecture, etc. These arts are used to create the atmosphere, the environment, and the scenery of the scenic reality that is represented. The use of scenography, music, lights, and language determines the particular scene and its genre. In every epoch, the theatrical performance has always been the result of group work. Many persons cooperate to construct the scenes, preparing and caring for every detail. Exhausting exercises are effectuated for months, repeating the scenes over and over until perfection is obtained. Theatrical representations, unlike cinema, are an exciting adventure for both actors and audience. In fact, the aim of actors and directors consists in obtaining the complete participation of their audience. Theatre has recently been revalued by a public sick and tired of somewhat poor film productions. The charm of theatres is essentially due to the sincerity of a performance that renews itself every evening.
The American Constitution. The United States constitute a federation composed of 52 states. Each state is represented in the federal government in Washington, D.C., and exercises a regional authority through a system of government similar to the federal government. The American Constitution was approved in Philadelphia in 1787 at a convention of the 13 original states which had obtained their independence from the colonial authority of Great Britain. In 1776, a committee of delegates of the original states produced an important document called the Declaration of Independence. This document proclaims the fundamental equality and possession of certain inalienable rights of all human beings. It also declares that governments are constituted to protect the liberty of citizens and may be eliminated through revolution if they are inadequate or if they abuse their powers. The Founding Fathers produced a constitution based on these ideas. Although the existence and condition of African slaves in certain states were not coherent with doctrines of equality, liberty, and universal governmental protection, the important principles of the Constitution determined the formation of a democratic government. This Constitution is still in force in an altered form. An essential characteristic of the Constitution is its flexibility. It was originally structured to evolve and appropriately adapt itself to any condition. In fact, it is subject to amendment by Congress if the proposal for alteration is confirmed by at least 3/4 of the legislators. The Constitution distributes authority between the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary organs of every single regional state government and the federal government. The essence of the Constitution is its ability to make the government homogeneous, so that no part of it could dominate the nation, and thus a more perfect union among citizens is formed in order to establish justice and secure liberty. Thus, certain sectors are controlled by the executive organ of the government, the President, certain others by the legislative organ, the Senate and the House of Representatives, and others by the judiciary organ, the Supreme Court. Local governments, which are frequently more conscious of the general population's opinions, operate in a way to balance the bureaucratic tendencies of centralized authority. The Constitution establishes a Senate, 2 senators per state, and a House of Representatives elected by the people. They constitute the Congress. All legislation must be approved by Congress and is then presented to the President, who occasionally may exercise his right of veto. In that case, the legislation returns to Congress to be definitively approved or rejected.
Physics. The subjects studied by physicists can be divided into these primary groups. 1. Mechanics. 2. Heat. 3. Light. 4. Electricity and magnetism. 5. Sound. 6. Atomic and nuclear physics. 7. Solid-state physics. The science of physics evolves continually, and some subjects that are currently studied were unknown hundreds of years ago. Principles of physics are applied to several other sciences, For example, biophysics applies these principles to the study of living organisms. Physical chemistry applies them to obtain reactions of chemical compounds. Even in astronomy and geology, these principles are fundamental. Physics is determined primarily by mathematics and logic. Mechanics is the study of objects, natural forces, dynamics, and such properties of matter as, for example, elasticity. It establishes important rules to consider in designing automobiles and airplanes. Mechanics is also concerned with varied problems, such as, for example, the efficiency of machines and the trajectory of projectiles. It is divided in two branches, fluid mechanics and solid mechanics. Fluid mechanics studies the forces and motions of liquids and gases. Solid mechanics comprises the study of dynamics, the study of moving objects, and statics, the study of objects at rest. The study of heat, called thermodynamics, examines the production of heat, its transfers and influence on matter. Heat is an important form of energy utilized in machines and turbines. It may be converted into electrical energy or mechanical energy. Optics, which is the study of light, enabled some scientists to produce inventions such as the microscope. The study of light as a source of energy has recently produced important results. Electricity and magnetism are similar phenomena. Electricity can produce magnetism, and magnetism can produce electricity. Generators provide electric current for domestic and industrial machinery. Electronics, an important advance in science, studies the activity of electrons, particularly in vacuum tubes or gas-filled tubes, and in special materials called conductors. The science of electronics makes possible modern communication systems, radio, television, telephone, etc. Studies in electronics have developed radars and computers. Acoustics is the study of the production and transmission of sounds. Atomic and nuclear physics studies the structure and properties of atoms. Nuclear energy presents enormous possibilities for human use, but can also be used for destruction in war.
Industry. The vocable industry has various meanings. Frequently, industry is described as a separate activity from agriculture. Also, the term industry is used to refer to certain types of industrial activities such as, for example, the automobile or textile industries. In the most common sense, industry comprehends all activities providing us with necessary and useful products. In this sense, agriculture is a form of industry. Some other forms of industrial activities are banking, manufacturing, transportation, communications, building, etc. Modern industry has evolved, becoming an essential element of the economy in contemporary society. Therefore, it is not limited to providing us the simple necessities of life, such as food and textiles. The aviation industry makes international travel rapid. Radio and television industries provide us with descriptions and information concerning all the important facts that occur in every part of the world. The pharmaceutical industry provides us with medicines for treatment of a lot of maladies. The telephone industry provides us with efficient communication systems. Modern industry has been described as an intermediary between nature and man. Nature has provided the natural resources or raw materials used in industrial processes, and the energy to operate industrial complexes. This energy exists in diverse forms: coal, oil, gas, atomic, hydroelectric, and solar. Nature has not distributed natural resources equally over the planet. In fact, some nations possess sufficient quantities of natural resources for agricultural production, but limited energy and mineral resources. Other nations, instead, possess abundant mineral resources, but lack the agricultural ones. The types of industry that develop in a particular region are determined by the resources provided by nature. For example, England's industrial predominance was due to the fact that it possessed vast quantities of coal. Modern industrial processes, such as the production of aluminium, require vast quantities of hydroelectric energy. The climate of a region is another important factor in determining the types of industry that will be located there. Nature, however, has not provided unlimited quantities of natural resources. The conservation or proper use of natural resources is an important task of modern industries and governments. Human responsibilities in the cooperation between nature and man are varied and complicated.
Meteorology. Meteorology is the science that studies the atmosphere. Precise weather forecasts are the result of this study. Weather forecast is the determination of future atmospheric conditions of every part of the world. Meteorology is therefore very important. Sometimes it may save human lives forecasting the arrival of hurricanes or the worsening of atmospheric conditions on the routes of airplanes or ships. Weather, or the atmospheric state, is determined by various elements. These are temperature, precipitations, rain or snow, air humidity, atmospheric pressure and winds. All meteorological variations depend on the heat exerted on the Earth by the Sun. The Sun is a star distant approximately 150 million kilometers from the planet Earth. The solar energy that arrives on the Earth is only a very small part of the total energy that it constantly produces. The remaining energy is dispersed in space. Solar energy is transmitted through waves similar to the radio ones. Some of them are visible, solar light. Others are invisible. However, they all contribute, creating meteorological effects. Every day, the heat on the Earth's surface created by solar radiations provokes the evaporation of great quantities of water. The aqueous vapor present in the air is called humidity. When the air reaches its maximum point of humidity, clouds form. A lowering of temperature provokes condensation, that is, the inverse process of evaporation. These processes of evaporation, condensation, and precipitation constitute the so-called water cycle. The study of the Earth's movements is also very important in meteorology. The rotation of the Earth around the Sun determines the 4 seasons. The rotation of the Earth on its axis determines the day and night and the direction of winds. Nowadays, meteorology has an infinite variety of practical applications. For example, meteorologists are engaged by state departments to study air pollution control and to analyze weather conditions that augment forest fire danger. In addition, they are essential in developing air traffic control systems. Meteorology has various specializations, such as, for example, weather forecasting with electronic computers, climatology, the study of climates, atmospheric chemistry or electricity, the study of the atmosphere of other planets, etc.
The Aztec Indians. The Aztec Indians constituted a civilized and technically advanced population living in ancient South America. They possessed a vast empire that comprised large territories of central and southern Mexico until they were exterminated in 1521 by the Spaniards. Their capital city was Tenochtitlan, now Mexico City. The Aztec Indians were famous warriors and had a special military organization. Their religious activities that comprised the sacrifice of human lives formed the basis of their culture. The Aztec Indians inherited great part of their culture from the previous inhabitants of the region, the Toltec Indians, and from the advanced civilization of the Maya of Yucatan. The houses of these Indians, made of adobe, were simple. Their clothing was decorated with colorful designs which represented the person's state in Aztec society. Corn, beans, and chili were primary foods. Chocolate was considered a royal prerogative. Tenochtitlan, called by Cortes the Venice of the New World, was the capital of the Aztec Empire. An unusual city, it was constructed on Lake Texcoco and contained a system of canals and aqueducts. The primary canals led to the most important plaza located in the center of the city, where pyramids with temples representing the Aztec divinities were situated. human sacrifices took place in these temples. Government edifices, markets, and palaces of emperors and noblemen were also situated in the area of the central plaza. The city had a population of 300,000 when the Spaniards arrived. Religion dominated every aspect of Aztec existence. Military victories brought political and economic advantages, but also prisoners who were used in sacrifice ceremonies to the various Aztec divinities. The most important form of sacrifice was practiced with a knife made of volcanic glass. One of the favorite Aztec divinities was the solar one, who required the sacrifice of human lives in order to make the sun appear. Various other divinities required special ceremonies and sacrifices at periodic intervals and on particular occasions. The Aztec architecture is interesting, but not as refined as that of Maya Indians. The most famous Aztec sculpture is the Aztec calendar stone currently preserved in the National Museum in Mexico City. This circular stone has a diameter of approximately 3.5 meters. It is sculptured with the image of the solar divinity at the center and with various other figures representing the Aztec versions of history, myth, and prophecy. Priests had complete control over education. Special schools prepared students for official religious duties. Religious schools provided instruction in history, Aztec traditions, and religious practices. The Aztecs recorded important events in books. However, they possessed no alphabet. They created instead a type of script which used pictures and symbolic characters.
Hawaii. The archipelago of Hawaii is the only state in the United States that is not part of the North American continent. It consists of a 1,610-mile-long chain of 122 islands situated approximately 2,400 miles west of Mexico in the Pacific Ocean. The capital is Honolulu. Hawaii joined the United States on August the 21st, 1959. This archipelago is famous for its natural beauties and the pleasant climate. It has blue seas, beautiful flowers, and graceful palm trees. In addition, this state has colorful ways of life that cannot be found in any other part of the world. Tourists who visit Hawaii may assist and participate in feasts, parades, typical dances, and many other special events. The leis, a large necklace of flowers, is the Hawaiian symbol of friendship. Every tourist receives one from the local inhabitants as soon as he arrives. The local population is composed of many racial groups. Polynesian, Filipino, and Japanese are the most important ones. However, groups of Korean, Puerto Rican, blacks, and Americans may also be included. Most of the population is urban. Approximately 80% of the population lives in Oahu, the most important island, in the cities of Honolulu, Kailua, and Kaneohe. Because of its geographical position in the Pacific Ocean, Hawaii constitutes a strategic military point. The Americans have established important Army, Naval, and Air Force bases on these islands. The salaries of military personnel and civilian employees at these bases provide the largest source of income in Hawaii. Agriculture is also very important. Hawaii produces more than a third of the world's supply of pineapple. Other agricultural products are sugar, coffee, tropical fruits, and flowers. The Hawaiian Islands were first inhabited by Polynesians who arrived by canoe around the 8th century. In the year 1778, Captain James Cook, commanding 2 British ships, discovered Hawaii, but unfortunately a year later, on his second voyage, he was assassinated by the islanders in a conflict. The unification of this island chain occurred between the years 1790 to 1810. Kamehameha, chief of the island Hawaii, conquered Maui, Molokai, and Oahu in 1795, and Kauai and Niihau in 1810. An attempt by the Russians to colonize these islands in 1814 failed. American and European explorers and merchants introduced contagious maladies such as, for example, tuberculosis and syphilis. These maladies exterminated more than half of the population. However, in 1820, American missionaries arrived, and besides the Christian doctrine, they brought Western medicines and instruction. By the end of the century, English had become the most important language. In 1898, the annexation of these islands to the United States was approved. Hawaii was the first American territory to be attacked during World War II. In fact, on December the 7th, 1941, Japanese airplanes bombed the naval base at Pearl Harbor and other military installations, killing over 2,400 persons.